Well, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the sermon this morning. We're in the book of Daniel. We've been in the book of Daniel, and we'll continue moving on through there. Last 2 weeks, we've kind of talked about King Nebuchadnezzar and this dream that he has. This Babylonian king has this dream of this giant statue made of different materials, and so Daniel's helped interpret it, and we talked about how it's not only significant to Daniel in his time, but it's a vision that's significant to us in our time. It's a prophecy. And so as a prophecy, we look to see what's the meaning of this statue, how does it affect us. And then last week I ended by saying one of the big effects of this statue of Nebuchadnezzar's and Daniel's interpretation is that we are people who are in exile. That we are people who are out of our homeland. And that we should acknowledge that, we should see that we're in a place that is hostile to us. But we have a God who has a plan, and a God who's going to execute that plan, and a God who's working for us, working towards an end, and something to always keep in mind. So now we're moving from that vision to Nebuchadnezzar, this Babylonian king, doing something. He's had this dream and he's heard it. So Nebuchadnezzar's reaction to the dream is to do this. It says, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. So King Nebuchadnezzar has this dream about this statue that will be destroyed and all these meanings, but he doesn't seem to really get it. His reaction is to build a statue himself. And the statue that he builds is completely made out of gold. Now to kind of understand what he does, it's really interesting if you think about the cross out there on 65. What he does is very similar to that. There's kind of an old-timey highway. Their Highway 65 of Babylon is running outside of the city, and a few miles outside of the town, he would have built this giant monument. And this giant monument would have been about 9 stories tall, is what that measurement comes out. So the equivalent of a 9-story building and about 90 feet wide. So it's a massive thing. But that's only kind of a part of it. Chances are, historians say that they've kind of gone here and they found the base of a big structure like this. And they say what people did at that time is it wasn't a 9-story guy. It was a big platform, and then maybe like an 8-foot statue on the top. And that this all would have been covered in gold. We wouldn't have made the whole thing out of gold, but it all would have been covered in gold. And the effect would have been that when you were traveling on that road, just like our cross on 65, you would see this monument. You'd see this giant statue. And it would ring to you that King Nebuchadnezzar was in power. The Babylonians were in power. And this was their emblem. And so this statue, there's a good chance that the statue was a representation of their main god. And so Nebuchadnezzar builds this giant statue, and let's see what he does next. And Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the satraps, which were like governors, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So another reason why he doesn't put it in the middle of town is not only because it's huge, but because he wants a big moment. He wants everybody to come to this party and see it. And so it goes on and it says in verse 4, Then a herald cried aloud, To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, and symphony with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. So if you can picture this scene, there's this giant statue right out here in the middle of the plain. And to build that statue and cover it in gold, you have to have a huge furnace to melt that gold. Get that gold so that you can apply it and put it all over this building. So you've got this giant statue, and then you've got this furnace that's heated up to make the gold to build the statue. He says, I'm going to have everybody come out. All the governors and all the satraps. That means the whole Babylonian Empire, right? If this was America, we'd say every state has to send a representative. And everybody has to bow down and worship this. And if you don't, you'll be thrown into the same fire that we've built this statue out of. You'll be fueled for that fire. And he goes on. So at the time when all people heard the sound of the horn, flute, harp, and lyre, and symphony with all kinds of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Can you imagine how weird this would feel, right? If you're sitting there and all of a sudden everybody in unison falls down at the sound of music and worships the statue. I always think about if you're a guest here at our church and you're not used to doing the Lord's Prayer, that must be really terrifying, right? All of a sudden you're sitting there, you're nervous, and everybody stands up all of a sudden and starts saying something together. It must really throw you off. I remember my first time I ever went to a Catholic funeral, I didn't know any of the stuff they were doing, and so I'm sitting down, I see people kneeling, and I'm like, was I supposed to kneel? And all the other things are going, I had no idea what I was doing, but everybody else seemed to know what was going on. Well, here as this music begins, you can picture it, all the people fall in unison and worship. And it's kind of the sound of their national anthem, the sound of their music. And so it goes on and says that at that time there were certain Chaldeans who came forward and accused the Jews. Then it kind of retells the story, so skip some of that. But they come to the king and they say, there are certain Jews whom you set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. You do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up. And it goes on. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now, if you're ready at the time, you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, and something of all kinds of music, and you fall down and worship the image which I have made good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands? So if you've been here the last few weeks, can you hear how this ties right into the vision Nebuchadnezzar's had? He's had this vision of this mighty statue made of these different things that's going to be crushed by something from God, right? From this rock from God. And now he's commanded that everybody come and bow down and worship this pure gold image. But there's a group that's resisting it, a group that will not do it. I'd ask you, if you were in their shoes, what would you do? Could you resist? Could you do it? Would you do it? I think me sitting comfortably here in church in air conditioning, I'd say, oh yeah, I could do it. I could definitely not bow down. That's a tough thing, right? I think as people in our own world today, we're always hitting obstacles where we have to ask ourselves, well, do I compromise? Do I change the rules? How much can I change? How much can I give up and still be in the right? If I was them, I think I might wonder to myself, what if I lay down like everybody else, but I don't say the words? Nobody's going to know, but I'll know, right? What if I just do this little thing or that little thing? Will I still be in trouble? Will I still be doing the wrong thing? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they make a kind of bold decision. They decide they're not going to fall down at all. That they're going to be the troublemakers. And you know what I think God needs from us sometimes? Is to be the troublemakers. To be the people who, it's not just that you're not participating, but it's that you'll actively show, I'm opposed to this. I'm not a part of this. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego do that by not falling down. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. He will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will worship the gold image which you have set up. So these three young men, probably in their 20s by now, refused to bow down. It says, then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the fiery furnace. Then these men who were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and their other garments, and were cast in the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, The flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down in the midst of the burning fiery furnace. So these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, are thrown into the furnace. Thrown in to be the food of this statue, right? To be the fuel for this statue. And as they're thrown in there, it says this, Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, Did we not cast three men down into the midst of the fire? He answered and said to the king, True, O king. Look, he answered, I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. Let me just read that again. Stay on that slide for a second. It said, Look, he answered, I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. So what does Nebuchadnezzar mean when he says like the Son of God? Right? What would that have been like? That they throw them in there and that they're looking, and instead of seeing four men disappearing into ash, or three men disappearing into ash, they see four men walking about in the flames. These flames that were meant to destroy these, that formed the statue, they don't touch them. And that the Son of Man is there with them, the Son of God. It's kind of an answer to the thing we saw earlier about the rock, right? And we wonder, what's this rock that God's going to establish? But here in the next story we find that it's the Son of God, that He's there with them. Are any of you guys in here today in the midst of a fiery season? In the midst of a difficult season? And you're wondering, has God got a plan? Is God going to get me through? I'm sure God will walk in the flames with us. You know, as I think about this scene, let me read another verse and then come back to it. It says, Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came to the midst of the fire, and the satraps, administrators, governors, and king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men, on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not on them. They come and they check out these three guys, and they've been untouched by the flames, unharmed by the flames. You know, I've thought about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego while they're in the flames. What it must look like to them. You know, to be inside the fire. And I thought that to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego inside the fire, I imagine it must look like outside the world was on fire as well, right? That everything was on flames. And I wondered to myself, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the fire. They're meant to be fuel for this evil, fuel for this image. But I think if we reevaluate it, they're the only ones that aren't the fuel, right? Everyone else on that plane that day has been consumed by that image, consumed by worshiping, used up. You know, something about the world that I see over and over again is that the world does not love us, right? The world doesn't love you. What the world will do is chew you up and spit you out, right? It will use you up. We have that expression, burnt out. You get burnt out. I hear that a lot in church, unfortunately, right? Burnt out. The idea that you get spent. Heard somebody the other day saying something, and they said, you know, that our God is one who replenishes us, fills us up, makes it so that we don't get burnt out. That despite the hardships and the troubles that come in life, we've got a God who we go to, and He can replenish us. And I heard that and I thought, that's true, isn't it? But is it true in me? Am I living it out right now? You know, I'm going to be teaching this next year in Branson, and so part of that job interview, you try and tell them everything that's good about yourself in a way that doesn't sound like a brag. So I basically told them, that I was a genius and I'd, done all these great things in life. That maybe if I had time I'd teach, But one of the things I said to the guy, I told him that one of the things I think is good for me in school is that I've got a source of life outside of school, right? That God is my source. He's my everything. So if things go horribly in one place and things go horribly one day, I'm not somebody who gets rattled because I've got a steady source in my life. And that's the thing that holds me. But I got to tell you, this last year's been wild. And sometimes I have to tell myself, Josh, you've got to get to the source. You've got to tether down. You've got to put the anchor down. You've got to slow down and let the world keep spinning, let the world keep moving, and go to your source. Or else you're going to get burnt up with everything else. You're going to get eaten up with everything else. Now, so my call on you this morning is, have you been going to the source? If we're going to face giants, if we're going to face flames, our only way of surviving is if we know that we serve a God who can keep us safe. And sometimes that means beating your head, your chest. Sometimes it means being loud. But all of that, I think, comes from sometimes being quiet. Right? Well, that's one thing that impresses me when you read through the Gospels about Jesus. Jesus is the Son of God. But over and over again, you find Jesus going to be alone. Right? Pulling away from the crowd. Walking up on the mountain. Needing to spend time with God. It's something that we all need. And if we don't, we're going to get burnt up. We're going to find ourselves. Because here's the thing. If you say to yourself, well, I'd love to spend some time praying. I'd love to read my Bible more. I'd love to really dedicate time to God. But I'm just so busy. I've just got so much going on. You know what you're really saying? That I'm worshiping another God. There's something else in my life that consumes more of my time. That's a good word. Consumes. I'm being consumed by something else. It's time to say no to some things. It's time to resist some things. And make sure that we're spending time before God. You know, when I think this morning about spending time with God, I think about many times in my life where I've gone to God in prayer and felt that peace, felt that joy of being in Christ. And I can't sing, right? But I'll do it. There's a song that comes to my mind, and I used to have this bluegrass CD that I listened to in my car. And my car, the CD player was broken. So that was the CD that was in there. So if I was going to listen to the CD player, it was that song. But it was a song that goes, put your hand in the hand of the man who walked on water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself and you can look at others differently. Put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. I think sometimes we forget who we're walking with. He's the one in the fire. He's the one that calms the sea. And he says, just put your hand in my hand and let's walk. Don't do this alone. Don't wage war on your own. Put your hand in my hand. Let's walk this road together.